Here on Channel 12 now, we present you 2 bonus episodes of Places of England Season 1, with Fabian Musco.
Greetings everyone, welcome to the first of 2 bonus episodes for Places of England Season 1. The previous episode looked at the village of Pembridge, which is 3 miles north from here. This settlement, like Pembridge, is on the Black and White Village Trail, and is also treasured with timber-framed buildings. I am in the village of Dilwyn. Dilwyn is a village and civil parish located in North Herefordshire, which has a population of 739 at the 2021 UK census. The name may be Old English for a hidden place, which appeared in the Domesday Book of 1086 as this name, while nearby Solars Dilwyn and Little Dilwyn were known as this name. The settlement is east of the A4112 road, built as the bypass of the village in 1974. The village is protected with lofty trees from the road, which preserves its tranquility. The parish church of St. Mary can briefly be seen from the road, with its octagonal shingled spire of the 18th century dominating the landscape to the southeast. It is situated on top of the West Bell Tower, built in 3 stages around 1200. The War Memorial was built of Portland stone in 1922, designed by W. G. Storbarber. The memorial was Grade 2 listed in March 2019, and would a parish church received the same listing? Well, the answer lies within the church interior, so I will go inside. The church building arose in the late 12th century, when the bell tower was built, but the church plan was extended and rebuilt in the late 13th century. The chancel screen was built in the 15th century, and it was altered a few times before the rood loft was demolished in 1867, the first of 4 Victorian restorations of this church. The east end of the south aisle has a parclose screen, also from the 15th century, and the north transept has a parclose screen from the same era. The north wall of the chancel is home to a tomb recess from the 14th century, where an effigy of a knight can be found. This may depict a member of the Tiru family. There are several treasures inside that are unnoticeable to the first-time viewer, and I was one of them. The masonry in the west wall of the nave traces an outline of a steep roof, formerly the nave of the first church of around 1200. Other treasures include the 6 heads supporting the chancel screen, and stained glass of the 14th century in the chancel. The south porch is a late addition to the Norman building, since it was built in the early 16th century. The windows were possibly borrowed from Wormsley Priory. The many architectural delights in Dilwyn Parish Church must be the reason why this building was Grade 1 listed in September 1966. This view of the building is from the north section of the churchyard, where a labyrinth was installed in 2017. This is the only village in Herefordshire to have a labyrinth. Opposite the church is Orchard Cottage, built in the mid-17th century. This timber frame building does not have listed status as of May 2023. The primary school at Dilwyn was built in 1845, and prior to that there was a charity school at the parish church. The entrance porch is similar to the church porch. Next to the school is schoolhouse, built of timber framing in the 17th century and altered in the 19th century. The 2 buildings are east of the church, and are Grade 2 listed. Here is the village green at Dilwyn, where a house occupied the site from the 17th to mid-19th century, known as Cross House. There are many historic buildings around the green, and the only public house in Dilwyn, the Crown Inn, is an example. Founded in the 17th century, this is the first parish council-owned public house in Herefordshire. Food is served for lunch from 12 to 2:30 p.m., and for dinner from 6 to 9 p.m. Opposite the pub is Cairn Court, which must be the finest collection of timber frame buildings in Dilwyn. The many buildings at Caron Court were built in the 17th century, which formed part of a farm for the Great House. The farmhouses were altered in the mid-19th century, and the site was redeveloped in the late 20th century. The buildings were remodeled in the late 20th century, and some decades earlier, the timber frame buildings on the former farm were Grade II listed in February 1953. The old forge was also Grade II listed at the same time, and this was built in the 17th century. The house was extended in the early 19th century, which housed a blacksmith at this time, and was altered in the mid-20th century when it became a tea room. There is a barn by the house, possibly built in the same century as the old forge. This houses an art and craft workshop. There are many modern buildings in Dilwyn, which is the case with every settlement in Herefordshire, and some border oak houses were built by the church in 2018. One strange fact about Dilwyn is its population, which is 739 at the moment. However, in a History of Dilwyn book from 1868, the population of the parish was nearly 1,100. The extract also states Dilwyn is one of the largest rural parishes in Herefordshire, which is true, but the most populous statement did not age well over the decades. Anyways, the building next to me is the Cedar Hall, which was built after a local fundraiser for £10,000 went successful in the 1960s. The village hall opened in March 1973, and this is a thriving building in the village, hosting several events like yoga classes, dance clubs, mums and tots, young farmers club etc. The village hall is east from the primary school, which can be viewed from the playground. The moated castle in Dilwyn is on private grounds, since it is concealed within private gardens. The Norman Motte and Bailey Castle, established in the 12th century, had a square keep that was discovered by excavation work in recent decades. The Great House in Dilwyn, built in the 17th century, had a timber-framed appearance until it was refronted in the early 18th century. The building was altered in the mid-19th century, when a dummy third story was added. When Nicolaus Pevsner visited Dilwyn in the mid-20th century, he viewed this house as unattractive. His opinion might have changed if he visited Dilwyn later, since the third story was removed in the late 20th century with the present roof. The house, garden wall, railings, gates and gate piers are Grade II listed. The country lane leading the walker from Crown into Dilwyn Common is clustered with modern houses, but there is a Georgian house by the first road junction that is worth noting. This is Townsend House, built in the early 19th century on the site of an 18th century house, and the present house incorporates fragments from its predecessor. This is also Grade II listed. There are several hamlets in Dilwyn Parish, and Little Dilwyn is one of them. This is southeast from Dilwyn Village, and the timber-framed house here was built in the early 17th century, which was extended in the mid-18th century. Opposite is the farmhouse from the late 16th or early 17th century, refaced in brick in the early 19th century. These buildings are Grade II listed. Northeast from Dilwyn is Allers Dilwyn, home to the historic T. Rules Court building. The T. Rule family has been based in Dilwyn since the Norman times, and until the 2000s they were unknown outside of Dilwyn Parish. In 2002, William Chase established T. Rules Crisps to supply local shops, but within a few years its market expanded into Europe and America. It has received numerous awards for the taste and quality of its crisps, both in England as well as internationally. You know that feeling when the Crisps brand is mentioned, particularly my favorite Crisps brand, and start to feel hungry afterwards? That's what happened to me now, LOL. The building behind me is west from the Crisps farm, and this is Yew Tree Cottage. This has origins to the 14th century, and was extended and altered in the 17th and 18th century. Placed by the A4112 road is Pitch Farm, a timber-framed farmhouse from the 17th century. Next to it is Pitch Cottage, also built at the same time. These houses are Grade II listed. Northwest from Dilwyn is Henwood, a country house that was built in the late 18th century. The attached hop kilns and stables are from the same period, and the house was altered in the mid-19th century. North from there is Bidney Farm, adjacent to the parish boundary of Yerdesland and Dilwyn. The farmhouse is from the 16th century, and the dovecote was built in the 17th century, when the farmhouse was extended. The buildings were altered in the mid-20th century. The hamlet of Luntley is south of the parish boundary with Pembridge and Dilwyn, and there are several listed timber frame buildings in the grounds of Luntley Court. The country house was built in the early 17th century, although it was remodeled in 1674 when the dovecote was built at the same time. The buildings were restored in the early and late 20th century, and like Henwood and Bidney Farm, the buildings in Luntley Court grounds were Grade II listed in February 1953. Luntley Court received Grade II star listed status at the same time, and the manor house is a self-catering holiday home, which also hosts retreats and celebrations. I am standing on the north side of the brook that divides the parishes of Pembridge and Dilwyn, which means I am in Pembridge, the episode that was meant to finish Season 1. I enjoyed my visit to Dilwyn, since the many timber frame buildings in the parish are some of the first-rate structures of that style in the county. I will visit Goodrich for the next episode, the only episode in Season 1 to look at a village in South Herefordshire. I will see you on that episode, and here's to the next time. Hello everyone, welcome to the second of 2 bonus episodes for Places of England Season 1. The previous episode looked at the village of Dilwyn, which is in North Herefordshire. I am in South Herefordshire to look at a village that is renowned for their castle, which William Wordsworth described as the noblest ruin in Herefordshire. I am in Goodrich. Goodrich is a village and civil parish located 4 miles south from Ross-on-Wye, and the settlement has a population of 571 at the 2021 UK census. It is on the south bank of the River Wye, and Goodrich grew around the old sandstone castle, which stands on a rocky sandstone outcrop overlooking the Wye. The castle was known as this name in 1101, named after an Anglo-Saxon landowner who constructed the castle around this time. This rendition of the name evolved to Goodrich over time. The castle was originally an earth and wooden fortification, and this was on the site of the present keep, built around 1150 of light grey sandstone. There used to be an earth mound built up to the first story, where the original doorway is still present. This was blocked up when a window was inserted in the late 13th century. The keep is the oldest surviving structure of the castle, and the views from the top are outstanding. The castle went through several ownerships after Godric's passing, one of which was William Marshall, who built additional towered curtain wall and stone around the keep. In the 1280s, Marshall's work was replaced with an imposing structure with 3 towers of dark sandstone. The new owner at this point was a half-brother of Henry III. The southwest area of the castle was altered in the 14th century, such as the southwest tower and Great Hall. The solar block and gatehouse dates from the 1280s, and this view facing west is from the staircase above the chapel. The view facing east shows the Barbican from the same century, which formerly occupied the site of a visitor center hut from the 1920s to 2000s. The chapel was built as part of the gatehouse, and this was recently restored in 2000, when 2 stained glass windows and new flooring was installed. The east window is known as the Millennium Window, created by Herefordshire artist Nicola Hipwood. This incorporated ideas from local parishioners and primary school children. The Talbot family were based at Goodrich Castle from 1326 to 1616, when it was passed into the hands of Henry Grey, Earl of Kent. The Greys chose not to reside at the castle, so they rented it to a series of tenants. I am standing by the stables, built in the early 16th century on the rock-cut ditch. This area of the castle was besieged in March 1646, led by Parliamentary Colonel John Birch and his stronghold. They returned to besiege the castle in June, with help of a new mortar constructed at a local forge. This was known as Roaring Meg, which has been on display here since 2004. The castle was still inhabitable despite the damage, but it was slighted in 1647, which left it impossible to defend. This engraving by the Buck brothers dates from the 1730s. The castle became a popular tourist attraction in the 1780s, when an excursion via the Wye from Ross to Chepstow was created. This was popularized by William Gilpin. The scenic route reached peak popularity for British travelers in the 1800s, during the time when the Napoleonic Wars affected travel to continental Europe. The ruins were Grade 1 listed in February 1966, and the site has been managed by English Heritage since the 2000s. The village of Goodrich grew around the castle in the 13th century, and the parish church was constructed in aforementioned century. St. Giles Church has a steeple from the second half of the 14th century, which can be seen from miles away. The church plan consists of a nave, chancel and north aisle, and the building was altered and restored in the late 19th century. During the English Civil War, the vicar of Goodrich Church was Thomas Swift. He relocated to Ireland at this time, and his grandson was a dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral, Dublin. The church building was Grade 2 star listed in February 1966. South of the church is the old vicarage, built in 1710, which was extensively altered in the second half of the 19th century. This was Grade 2 listed in July 1985. East of the village is an old Augustinian priory, founded by Sir Richard Talbot of Goodrich Castle in 1346. It was weakened by the Black Death shortly after it was built, and it succumbed at the dissolution of the monasteries in 1537. Despite this, the Talbot family owned the priory land until 1616, then they were used as farm buildings until 1980, when they were converted into self-catering holiday apartments. East of the priory is Curran Bridge, spanning the River Wye that separates the parishes of Goodrich and Woodford. This was built on the site of an ancient ford, which took its name from the adjacent priory. The stone bridge was built from 1825 to 28, after an Act of Parliament was approved. The bridge was altered in 1873, the year when the railway station on the Watford side of the Wye opened. This station was on the Ross and Monmouth Railway, which closed in 1959. There was another landmark building in Goodrich that was constructed at the same time, and this coincided with the popularity of the Wye tour excursion from Ross to Chepstow. This was Goodrich Court, built as a neo-Gothic castle to the design of Edward Blore in 1828. This was built for antiquarian Sir Samuel Rush Merrick, who lived there until 1848. The building was controversial when it was built. An example was the renowned poet William Wordsworth, who wished to blow away the structure and all the possessions it contained. His wish turned out true in the mid-20th century, since the court was stripped of its contents, furnishings and fixtures in 1946. This was after it housed a school in World War II. These aerial photographs from 1948 show the building in a dilapidated state, and from 1949 to 50, the site was demolished in preparation for domestic buildings. Despite Goodrich Court is long gone, the affiliated buildings with the estate are intact, such as the garden house opposite the south entrance to the court. This was built in 1888 as the stables complex for Goodrich Court, constructed of red brick as a U-shaped structure. The only intact building resembling Goodrich Court in neo-Gothic style is the Monmouth Gate, situated on the A40 road from Ross to Monmouth. This was the main gatehouse for Goodrich Court, built in 1828 as the West Lodge to the estate. This was greatly altered in the decades after Goodrich Court was demolished. The gatehouse is adjacent to a house from the mid-17th century, although its core is from the late 16th century. This was altered in the 19th and 20th centuries. The South Lodge to Goodrich Court was built in the mid to late 19th century, and this was altered in recent times, as evident in this photograph showing the east side. The estate had their own gas works, also built by Edward Blore in 1828. This was altered in the 1970s as a private house, when the glazed porch was inserted. If a visitor approached the village from the southbound direction on the A40 road, the first building in the village that would catch their eye is this cottage. This was built in the mid-19th century, and the coats of arms for Goodrich Court are seen in the upper panel. The name for this building is Welsh, which has religious origins. There is a public house southeast of the cottage, and this was built around 1830 in the Tudor Gothic style. This building replaced an earlier pub on the site, known as the Crown and Anchor, and this was altered in the 20th century. This is one of two public houses in the village of Goodrich. The village hall is south from Mee Hostelry, and this was built in 1888 by the Trafford family of Hill Court and Hom Green. The family gave ownership of the room to the Goodrich Village Hall Trust in the 1970s. The War Memorial is south of the village hall, built in memory of the locals who gave their lives in the First World War. This was built in 1920, and was dedicated by local clergy on 27th of May 1923. Opposite the War Memorial are two holiday cottages, known as Jollies of Goodrich. This takes its name from the old village shop, which also housed the village post office. In this photograph from the 1920s, it seems the building housed a post office and shop for nearly a century. The village still has a primary school, although the old school of 1850 is now a private house. The background shows it for sale in 2016. The new primary school is opposite the old school, and this was built in 2000. South of St. Giles Parish Church is Whitehall, a stone house built in the 17th century. This was altered in the 20th century. There are a few timber frame buildings in Goodrich, one of which is the old court from the late 16th century. This was greatly altered in the 19th and 20th centuries. Goodrich House is a fine Georgian house from the late 18th century, though it was remodeled from an earlier gabled house. The central portico and door dates from the 20th century. Goodrich has a tennis and cricket club, which is situated away from the village. Goodrich Manor is west of the village, situated in Goodrich Cross near the A40 road. The manor was built in the early 19th century, along with the adjacent Crosskeys Inn, which was once a coaching inn. It is open every day from the midday to dusk. On the west side of the A40 road is Newhouse Farm, built as a vicarage in 1636. With the exception of a 20th century extension to southwest wing, the house has seen little change. This painting from 1810 depicts a country house in Goodrich, situated southeast from Goodrich Cross. This is Rockland's house, built in the mid-18th century. The building was altered in the early 19th century, the same time the aforementioned painting was created. The house is west from Coppet Hill, which is 659 feet high and earned local nature reserve status in 2000. After 15 years of conservation management, the hill can be accessed from several footpaths, one of which leads the walker over Dry Arch from the village. This arch was built by Kern Bridge Company in 1828. There was an aircraft crash near Coppet Hill in 1942, which was the deadliest crash in the history of military test flight in the UK during World War II. This ill-fated aircraft performed tests for the H-2S radar, and one member on board the aircraft was Alan Blumlein, the inventor of stereo sound recording. The chapel in Goodrich Castle holds another stained glass window, from 1992, commemorating Blumlein and the other engineers, scientists and servicemen involved in radar development. I will look at two features on Coppet Hill, and one of these is the ruinous folly of around the 19th century, presumably built as a lookout. East from the hill is a disused railway tunnel, which was built in 1873 on the Ross and Monmouth Railway. This is situated in Thomas Wood. I am standing by the trig point on Coppet Hill to end the Goodrich episode, the last of 2 bonus episodes for Places of England Season 1. I enjoyed my visit to Goodrich, since the several sandstone rubble buildings are a cheerful sight to visitors and locals in South Herefordshire. They remind me of what I saw in Ross on Wye 5 years ago. I will return to Goodrich Village now, since I've been waffling on this high summit for quite a while. Thank you for watching these bonus episodes, and until we meet again, cheerio.